Anyway, also the rest of the farm is coming alive. This is a nice picture of a tree here. And do you remember I said to you about the reach of a cow?
Yeah.
Well, someone did say to me, how do you trim your trees so neatly? Well, that tree is beautifully trimmed by our cows. And if you look, you can just see on the lower branches, you can see the ones that are a bit just in reach of a cow's tongue. But what's nice about that tree is I knew it when it was a conker, because I planted it. So that's quite nice being on a family farm, is you do see things through like that, you know. But if you wonder why the cows are all going in that direction, they're just on their way into milking. So here we are in the lower fields, and these are the fields that are less intensively managed, and we put our heifers down here. I think there might be Lab and Angus there as well. So they graze the lower fields, and then the more intensive fields nearer the farm get used for well, I said that we only do one crop, but we really do two crops. We do a crop of grass. And this is May time, we're silage making. Now, I speak to quite a few different groups, and I speak to some groups in Bristol and stuff, and I go on about tractors driving down the roads, and I forget that in the middle of Bristol you're not going to get a tractor driving down the road, are you? But if you live in this area, you're quite used to seeing a tractor whizzing around it, aren't you? And you know what it's like in May time? They're all going hell for leather, aren't they? You come down a corner and there's a blooming trailer behind the tractor, and you're like, whoa! And there's a reason for that, because it's a very intense time of year, May, because what we've got to do is we've got to get our winter feed for our dairy herd. But not only have we got to get it, but we've got to get it right. Because we've got to get the right quality and the right quantity, and the two aren't necessarily the same thing. Because if you harvest it late, you get a lot of bulk, a lot of quantity, but you won't get the quality because you won't have enough sugar, or not enough sugar in the grass. So what you want to do is get not too much grass with the right quality. So it's quite a difficult balance. But also you've got to rely on the weather. We've got to cut this and let it wilt for 24 hours, so without any rain on it, ideally. So what you do, the two things to get it right, is you look at the weather forecast, make sure you're going to get a day of good weather, and then secondly, you look out the window and see what your neighbour's doing. Because if he's got his mower on, you think, I better go mowing. He must know something I don't know. So that's the two tips. Look at the weather forecast, see what your neighbour's doing. And what we do, we get contractors in for this, because we couldn't afford this machinery. I'm not exactly sure of the value of this kit, but I think at least 150,000 for the forager, and the tractors are 50 grand each easily. So you're talking 250 grand in that picture there, really. So they come in, we mow it one day, they harvest it the next, and basically what they do is they pull it through that machine, and as it goes through the machine, it chops it up into small bits. Then they bring it into the silage clamp. There we go. It's another bit of kit that's not ours, because we couldn't afford that either. It's not really worth us owning it for one day, is it, really? One day's use a year. So we bring it into the pit, and what we're doing is we're just basically pickling it, like you might do pickled onions or pickled eggs or something. We're pickling the grass, and how we do that is, as they push it in, they squash it down to get all the air out of it, and then when we finish squashing it down, we seal it with plastic. And the sealing with plastic, as long as it's airtight, it'll gradually sort of ferment and pickle, but it won't go rotten. And that's our grass winter feed. So it's not a complicated process, it's just the fact of getting it right for the to get the quality. Right. Do you remember the snowy picture? Here we go. There it is in the summer. It's a bit different, isn't it? Isn't it brilliant how England, I think England is an amazing country, because how it comes alive from looking out the window now, and you think, God almighty, summer's never going to come. And then you forget, and you see that, and you think, God, it's wonderful, isn't it? Anyway, this is one of 3 fields we've got in our higher level stewardship as semi-improved grassland, okay? Now, semi-improved grassland is what the whole of England would have been covered with before the war. It's looks pretty, like that. There's a lot of buttercups. There are other plants in there. But it's not very productive. And up until the war, we had a lot of land like that. And then during the war and after the war, there was a big push to produce more food. I mean, you imagine, it's all very well looking at nice flowers, but you can't eat them, can you? So when there was all the campaign, when people were having rationing and there was a Dig for Victory campaign and stuff, there was a big push to improve agriculture in the UK. And about 92% of semi-improved grassland was got rid of. It was ploughed up, sprayed off, and put into improved things like Italian ryegrass and stuff. So there's pockets of this left, okay, which are actually very good for biodiversity. And now people have got to the stage where we all have got full stomachs and there's loads of food in Tesco's. We want to keep the bits like this now because we can afford to keep these bits. And I actually received some funding to look after it. And you might think that's funny. How do you look after it? Well, what I don't do now is I don't put any fertiliser on it, not even manure. And the reason for that is by reducing the amount of fertility, you improve the chance for the flowers to grow, because wildflowers don't like fertile land, they like poor soil, because otherwise the grass outcompetes them. The other thing as well is I have to make a hay crop at least every 2 to 3 years. And the reason for making a hay crop is that wildflowers set seed in about June time. If I make silage in May, I've cut them all off before they've set seed. So by making hay in, say, end of June, July, those seeds can be spread around by my haymaking and spread the wildflowers around the field. The other thing I do get, I should tell you, before I move on, I showed this picture to a farmer, and the first thing he said to me, he went, "Cool, that one's spraying, doesn't it?" But that was kind of old school, because we've come away from that a bit in farming now. Some people want to spray everything, but there is people do care about the land, not just for spraying. But the other thing I have done on it, okay, is I actually put some more wildflower seeds into it. And I received some funding to get some wildflower seeds. I was putting 29 different types of wildflowers back into this field, okay? So I received some funding, and when I set up the stewardship scheme in 2010, I was allocated £2,000 for wildflower seeds, okay? But I did the orchard, and then I went back to do the wildflower seed planting, and they went, "Oh, sorry, budget cuts, it's all gone." Well, the thing is, I know all these companies and groups and everything, they also got no money, but they've always got a biscuit tin around the back with a few quid in it, haven't they? And I said to the bloke at Natural England, "I'm sure you got something a bit." And he goes, "Okay," he found me 450 quid, okay? And then I topped it up with another 150 quid, so £600, okay, for wildflower seeds. But the question is, how much does wildflower seeds cost? How much do you think a ton of wildflower seeds? Some of you, if you've heard me speak before, don't guess, but I'll give you a clue, okay? I'm not an arable farmer, so I'm going to get this figure not exactly right, but say a ton of milling wheat is about 140 quid. Do you reckon? I don't know. Less than that. Less than £140 a ton for milling wheat, okay? How much do you think a ton of wildflower seeds costs? 500? £1,000? A few thousand? Any advance on a few thousand? 10,000. Well, that's the highest bid I've ever had on a group floor. But, well, I'll tell you, a ton of wildflower seeds is, drum roll, £136,000. So, my 600 quid for wildflower seeds got me a Tesco carrier bag. I didn't get much, but I got 4.5 kilos. And it seems funny if you work it out, the tonnage price, it seems odd, but it's because I ordered different mixes, so some of them are slightly more or less than others, but it's a lot of money. 600 quid got me 4.5 kilos. And that picture there of the wildflower seeds was taken in my hand. Now the reason it's so expensive is if you think about how small wildflower seeds are, like that cowslip you saw in the picture earlier, you need a lot of wildflowers to get a ton of seed. And believe it or not, there are actually farms in the east of the country that just grow wildflowers. They grow fields of cowslips and fields of oxeye daisies just to harvest for the seed. Anyway, so I got this wildflower seed, and then I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do? So I thought, right, I'll get some school kids involved. So I actually invited some kids from Iron Acton Primary School, which I know a friend had some kids there at the time, so they came and helped. But what you don't do is give some kids a carrier bag with 600 quid worth of seed in it. Otherwise they go like that, and you're like... So what you do, actually, this is a tip if you're ever going to do this, is you mix it with sand. And if you mix it with sand, then when they spread the seed like that, you're throwing it all out. You're not going to just get it all dumped in one spot. So we mixed it in sand and spread it out. And I also got them to spell out the initials of the school in wildflower seeds, so IAS, Iron Acton School. And I was talking to someone about this, and they said, apparently they heard that some prisoners had a very similar job, planting daffodil bulbs on the side of the motorway. But when they came up, it said F off on the side. But I was entirely convinced that Iron Acton School weren't going to do that. And in fact, I was right, nothing came up. And this is the funny thing is, right, I did this thinking, we spread this seed over quite a lot of the field, and I thought next year it would be amazing. And I went out there and there was nothing to see. And we're in year 3 now, I think, or maybe year 4 this year, and it's only just now that it's starting to get odd bits of crop up, and there's oxeye daisy and yellow rattle and things like that. And it's taken a long time for this to start going, because the thing about wildflower seeds, they don't always just take, that's why they produce so many little seeds, because not all of them are successful. And it just goes to show that it's very easy for someone to go, oh, that wants spraying, but it's very hard to get it back. And it's a long-term project, but it's a nice project to do. I'm really enjoying it, and it's certainly better than getting prisoners to do it. But that's why I do it, really. Look, there's my 2 kids, and we go down there every year since I've had kids. That we take that picture every year, and they're growing up. At some point, they'll be taller than me, and I'll be a little squit in the middle. But it's a nice project to do with them. That's little Harry. They were running around. We had David Bowie on the music tonight because of the fact that he's died. And they don't know who David Bowie is, but they were both dancing around in their underpants in the lounge. It was hilarious. So that's a little aside there. Anyway, there's any ornithologists in? Very quiet. What? No, slightly. No, what? No, it is actually thrush. Someone said you said thrush. It's the mistle thrush, and you can just see the mistletoe there. And I always say to groups, the thing about birds is they're very clever. And if I said to a WI group, someone I was speaking to, as a competition, make a bird's nest, could you make one as good as that? Bearing in mind they do it with a beak and a couple of little. It's incredible, isn't it? But anyway, that's just a little picture I took. And there they are. That's that's swallows actually, but that was in the apex of the farmhouse. They come back every April. I'm looking forward to seeing them again this year, hopefully. So we're in midsummer now, and there's my brother getting the cows in there. And remember the tree with which I said I planted? It's just at the top here. Where's my little arrow gone? Just up there. But what's interesting is that some cows always seem to walk in the same spot, and you can see a cow path there where they made, and that's just because they've walked in the same spot. And if you look very closely, you can see last year's cow path there that's grown over. I don't know why that is, but some cows always walk in the same spot. It's funny, isn't it? It's like creatures of habit. That's my brother, yeah. Again, he's working and I'm not. And there we are. There's the lineup of the 3 of us there. That picture, I did that on a timer, and you can see in my top pocket, you can just see the outline of the camera case. The interesting thing is, I used to do some stuff with Tesco's for milk 6-7 years ago, and the Telegraph came out to do an article about it, and they sent a photographer out to take a picture of us like that, and the bloke just said, just get the cow to stand there and we'll take. Well, if you've ever tried getting a cow to stand where you want it, it didn't work. And then we tried all sorts, and in the end we did a picture just like that with them in the background in the collecting yard for the parlour, because it was the only way you could get the cows in the picture with them staying still. And I've still got the old pictures. He emailed me the pictures of all these random cows all looking around because he's trying to get them to stand still. Anyway, here's our milking parlour, very old-fashioned milking parlour. It's called a breast parlour. You won't see these around anymore. It ticks over all right for 70 cows, but any more than that, it would be useless. But, it works for us. And the way the milk price is at the moment, there's no money to invest in anything better, really. So we've just got to keep going on that. We milk them twice a day, and then we put it in the bulk tank there. And we did supply Dairy Crest until December. And Dairy Crest has now been bought out by Muller, so we're now supplying Muller. And its milk's going to Stonehouse. The interesting thing is that we supply the milk in that bulk tank. It's cooled down to below 5 degrees. Above 5 degrees, they won't take it. But they only pick it up every other day. You know when you pick up a bottle and it says fresh milk on it? It's not quite as fresh as you think, because dairy companies only want to pick up your milk every day if they can, because it reduces their transport costs. And if you've only got storage to store it for one day, they actually penalise you and reduce your payment. Because what they do is they give you a thing called the every other day collection bonus, which is really a penalty for the guys who can't provide storage for 2 days. But it's all about, you imagine these tankers, they hold 20,000 litres of milk. They use a lot of fuel. I think they do about 11 miles to the gallon or something. So you can imagine running those around. They don't want to drive them too much. Anyway, moving on here. Have you had the Hall Canal Trust talk to you at all? No? If you're looking for speakers, that's probably a group to contact. They're based at Iron Acton, I think. They provide us with barn owl boxes. That's one that we've had on the farm. We've had quite a bit of success with that. We've had the barn owls back on the farm for about 6-7 years, and it's something that I'm really proud of because it means that the environmental work I'm doing on things like the common are kind of paid off. And there's a barn owl pellet there I've opened up. I think if you came round on the farm walk, some of you might have seen me show you a barn owl pellet. And I always show people, and I never remember to wash my hands afterwards and have a biscuit later. It's always a bit of an issue, and oh yeah, what's?